Hi there, this is Love Johar. Thank you so much for tuning in this video and thank you so much for watching this channel. Again, we have change management now, another ITGC control for you. Okay, a very important control from ITGC perspective after access to programs and data. We will see what all different processes do we have in the change management and whether the different controls are applied appropriately as per the ITGC requirements or not. Okay, so definitely a very informative video for you all out there who are trying to implement or audit ITGC at any given time. Please watch carefully and stay tuned.
So I'm Ashutosh from Pune. Videos were so helpful, so that each and everything what he used to explain his videos, I always find it very easy understanding. The same contents are there, like thousands of trainers and coach and mentors are there on the internet, but then the kind of information is provided by Love that is on a very different level, especially for Indians, because you get that personal touch from his communication, from his training videos, the kind of knowledge he provides. Love, thank you so much for whatever you have done for me. It really helps me and helps me to stand out from the crowd in my company or in my previous job. So thank you, Love, for holding my hand in this journey and helping me with all this information.
So now let us see from ITGC change management perspective what are the different processes first of all that are involved. Number one, we have change initiation where we have request for change. Okay, any change should formally begin with the change request, and this should include documenting the nature of the change, why the change is needed, what is the business reason for it, and the expected impact after the change as well. Then we have change authorization and approval. Okay, who will be the approval? Who will be the approver? And what will be the approval process? Any changes should be reviewed and approved by appropriate stakeholders. Some changes will be reviewed by IT management. Some changes will be reviewed by security teams, and other will be reviewed by business unit leaders. And some changes will be combinedly reviewed by all of them, depending upon the type of change. Right. So high risk changes may require higher level approvals as well, definitely. And change planning and testing after that is you need to plan for the change. Okay, you need to make sure you understand the impact. You analyze the potential impact of the change on system, data, business processes, including a risk assessment as well for any change that you are trying to perform. Okay, then you need to have test plans in place, creating and executing test plans in a non-production environment to ensure the change works as intended and does not introduce any new issues to the environment. Okay, backout and recovery plan, very important from a change perspective. Preparing a plan to revert the changes if they lead to unexpected issues. There should always be a rollover plan, a failover plan in place. Okay, then you have change implementation, change deployment, implementing the changes in a controlled manner, often during predefined maintenance window to minimize the impact on the business operations. Then you have post implementation review. After the change has been implemented, you need to review and document. Okay, it should be reviewed so that you make sure that it has achieved the desired outcome without any adverse effects or not, and all relevant documentation should be updated to reflect the change that has been made, right? And last but not the least, user acceptance testing, very important. You need to involve the relevant stakeholders, relevant users, to verify that the change that you have made meets the business needs and functions correctly in the live environment. So these are the different processes which are involved in the change management process. So now from an ITGC perspective, we need to make sure that the change management control works fine. So for each of these different components of change management, we'll look at now in depth what is the process that they follow, what are the risks associated, and what are the controls that we need to put in from a compliance perspective in order to implement the change management control from ITGC. So first one is change request and initiation. Okay, we have already discussed this part, so I'll not go through it again. Any change starts with a formal request, which includes details like the change scope, purpose, risk, and impact on the current system and on business. Okay, and impact on the business, right? Then you have a change classification. Changes are classified based on their complexity, urgency, and impact. Okay, depending upon whether they are minor, major, or emergency changes, depending upon the priority and impact. Right. Now, what are the different risks? Sorry. Now, what are the different risks which are associated with these types of changes? Number one could be inadequate documentation. Okay, missing or incomplete information in the RFC can lead to misunderstanding the changes impact, leading to failures. Okay, so make sure that the request for change has complete information. Very important from a change perspective. improper classification. Misclassifying changes might result in inappropriate handling. Okay, make sure you classify the changes properly, leading to delays or mishandling of the critical updates. Now, what are the controls in place that you can implement in order to make sure that these risks do not happen? Basically, so in order to do that, you standardize request for change templates. You basically create templates. Use standardized forms or systems to capture all necessary details about any changes, ensuring consistency and completeness for accuracy, right? Then you have defined classification criteria. You establish clear guidelines for classifying the changes, ensuring they receive the appropriate level of scrutiny and resources as required, depending upon the severity and the impact. Okay, hope this is clear, guys. Then you have change impact assessment, another component of change management. The process is simple. You understand the potential effect of the change on other systems, data, security, and business processes. And you have stakeholder identification. You identify and engage all the stakeholders who may be impacted by the change. Now, what are the risks that can actually come in this particular component? Underestimating the impact. Failure to fully understand the impact will lead to disruption in critical business processes or system failures. Okay, definitely, if the impact is not assessed properly, this would happen. Overlooking any dependencies, ignoring system or application dependencies might cause unforeseen issues in other parts of the IT environment. Definitely, you look at dependencies in place before you implement the change. So, what are the controls in place? Comprehensive impact analysis must be there first of all. Use impact assessment tools and techniques like dependency mapping to understand the broader implications of the change. What do we mean by dependency mapping? Is you need to make sure what are different IT components are basically related to this change, and you map them accordingly. This is what it means by dependency mapping. Okay, so that you know what all IT equipments or IT infrastructure is affected by this change. Okay, that is called as dependency mapping. Then you have stakeholder engagement, ensuring that all relevant stakeholders, including business users, IT teams, and security personnel, are involved in the impact assessment process. Okay. By this, if you include the stakeholder engagement as well, you will make sure that all the different stakeholders are involved, which should be there as part of a standard change impact assessment process. Then you have change approval component. Okay. First, let's see the process. What is the approval workflow? Changes should go through a formal approval process involving IT management, security, and sometimes business leaders, depending upon the change nature. Emergency change protocols. Emergency changes should have a fast track but controlled approval to address any urgent issues. And what are the risks associated now? Unauthorized changes. Implementing changes without proper approval can lead to significant security and operational risks. We need to make sure it does not happen. Then we have delays in critical changes. Bureaucratic approval process may delay the implementation of time-sensitive changes. We need to ensure that the workflows that we have are effective and efficient. Right now, what are the controls in place? Role-based approvals. First of all, establish approval workflow based on the type and impact of the change. Ensure that only authorized person can approve the changes. And second is emergency change procedures. Implement clear guidelines for handling and documenting emergency changes, ensuring they are reviewed post implementation, even so that they are reviewed post implementation, even in case of an emergency. So this is very important. Then we have change testing. Okay, test planning, developing a comprehensive test plan that covers all aspects of the change, including functionality, security, and performance. Then we have testing environment. Test should be there in a controlled sandbox environment, non-productive environment that closely monitors the mirrors the live environment. Risk here, what are the different risks? Is insufficient testing. Sometimes, if a change is not adequately testing, it might introduce new bugs or vulnerabilities, leading to system failure or security breaches. I do not want to comment, but I think this may have happened in the CrowdStrike case. Okay, I do not want to comment on that, but this is only my assumption. I may be wrong as well, but I think this may have happened. Testing in an inadequate environment. Testing in an environment that does not accurately reflect production can again result in unanticipated issues post deployment because you are not at all replicating the production environment. So this is very important. You need to replicate the production environment. So what are the controls now as per ITGC? You need to define testing protocols, establish detailed testing protocols that include unit tests, integration tests, user acceptance testing, and regression testing, whatever is needed for the change to be implemented. Then you need to have environment parity. Ensure that the testing environment completely replicates the production environment as closely as possible, including data, configuration, and network settings. Okay, so that you do not miss any important bugs or issues in the production environment. Then you have change implementation. Okay, Schedule the change implementation. Consider business cycle, peak usage time, and other event factors to minimize disruption. Okay, deployment planning. Change has to be deployed properly. Okay, so that the business does not get disrupted. Deployment execution. Implement the change according to the deployment plan. Follow documented process procedures. What are the risks? So in this case, implementation errors. Sometimes mistake during deployment can happen, which basically cause system outages, data corruption, or security vulnerabilities. I think this one basically caused in the case of CrowdStrike. There was a complete outage. Then we have unplanned downtime. If the change causes unexpected issues, it may lead to unplanned system downtime, affecting business operations. Okay, so what are the different controls now in order to make sure that these risks do not happen? Basically, we have pre-implementation checklist. Use a detailed checklist to verify all prerequisites are met before implementation, including backups, approval confirmations, and readiness of the rollback plans. Then you have controlled deployment windows, scheduled deployment windows during low impact times, very important, so that business does not get disrupted and ensure that necessary resources are available during the time of change implementation. Post implementation review. Okay, what do we mean by that? Post implementation review means performing additional testing after deployment to ensure the changes in functionality are expected in the live environment are there as expected, and review and documentation. Conduct a post implementation review to assess the success of the change and update documentation accordingly in case of any variations or deviations, right? Then you have risks. What are the different risks associated with post implementation review? Definitely, you have unidentified issues post implementation. Then you have inadequate documentation. These are the two different risks. And unidentified issues post implementation means problems that arise after deployment that may go unnoticed, because sometimes people will not raise tickets. So sometimes people will not, inform help desk teams in case of any application changes. They actually, do not inform, raise the tickets for each and every issue. That's why sometimes it can go unnoticed that as well. So without proper post implementation checks in place, this can happen. Then you have inadequate documentation. Failing to update system and process documentation can lead to confusion and errors in future changes. In case of any deviations that you have observed, this is very important. So, what are the controls in place to make sure this process runs smoothly? You need to have user acceptance testing, conduct UAT to ensure that the end users are satisfied with the change, and that it meets the business requirements. Both these, checks are very important from a change post implementation change review perspective, right? Then you have post implementation audit, review the change process, document the lessons learned, updating relevant documentation, and ensuring all aspects of the change are recorded, right? Then last but not the least, change monitoring and reporting. You need to have continuous monitoring of the changes. Okay, system and application post changes for any irregularities or performance issues must be there. Then you have proper reporting in place. Generate reports on any change success rates, issues encountered, and overall impact to provide insights for any future changes. Now, what are the risks associated with this? Maybe delayed detection of issues. Sometimes, without proper monitoring, issues introduced by the change may not be detected promptly, leading to extended downtime or security risks. Then you have lack of accountability also, because of which inadequate reporting happens, and basically the effectiveness of change management process can be obscured and make it difficult to hold responsible parties which are accountable for this particular thing. Now, what are the controls in place from ITGC change management control perspective? We have automated monitoring tools should be there. Implement automated tools to continuously monitor system performance, security, and other critical metrics post the change has been implemented. And then you have comprehensive reporting. Develop detailed report that track change metrics, including success rates, rollback occurrence, and time to resolve issues to improve further and future change management processes. So I hope this video has been very informative for you. I have tried to cover what all is related to the change management perspective from an ITGC perspective. Feel free to add me. How are you dealing with the change management process in your ITGC environment? How are you implementing these controls and changes? What are the risks that you are facing? And feel free to add any questions if you had for this particular control. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye bye.